So, the game is the Rise of the Roman Republic. I just wanted to say a couple things. Just talk a little bit about somewhat how the game works. It's one that I've been wanting to get to for a long time, and I had been kind of intimidated by the Roman political rules to it. Having read the rule book, the movement and attrition rules were a little bit different, but not particularly difficult in and of themselves. The game does not have a typical movement allowance limit on leaders or troops. Essentially, a leader can move as far as he wants and do as many things as he wants, subject to attrition and something called continuation die rolls. So each leader has a certain number on his chit here. The black number there, the 5, that's his campaign rating, and that's the number that you have to roll less than or equal to each turn after certain events to see whether he finishes or can continue moving or fighting or whatever it is that you want to do with him. The various other numbers are the number here to the left, the 2 is his initiative rating. That's how many chits he will get in the chit draw cup. Over here is his basically his command rating, I believe, which the higher the letter, like an A or a B, would be good and relatively unheard of for the Romans. C's, D's, and E's, much more common for the Romans in this period. They're not really very good. And so that would affect his ability in combat, depending on what you roll for the leadership DRM table when you do combat. So the movement allowance, attrition, not too difficult. As a leader moves his unit around in different regions, each of these regions have a different ratings on them. Let's take a look at them here. You can see the number next to each of these regions is the attrition value. So essentially, when a leader moves in that particular region, he will incur that many attrition points. So obviously, if he moves through several regions, he will be accumulating the base points for those regions. And then he also picks up some attrition points as he moves through different terrain features. If you cross a river, that adds to your attrition. You cross through mountains, that adds to the attrition. Cross through swamps, you can see there's a swamp hex there, some swamp up here. All those kind of things add to the attrition values. So the more points you accumulate moving, obviously, the more chance you have of losing the more troops involved. So you can move as far as you want, but you may be paying a price for it, attrition-wise. So, again, that conceptually isn't very difficult. However, for the Roman leadership, for all of these different armies here, and you can see here, there's different stacks of forces here on the board. Roman military forces are organized into consular armies, which are comprised of legions. And all of these consular armies and legions have to have leaders for them. And these leaders change every turn. And so the way that's done on the Roman side is through elections. And each turn there's an election phase where you elect the new leaders that will take these different positions. And the positions that are available are determined by how many legions are on the board. So you can see here, hopefully I'm not causing too much motion sickness by moving the camera here. Here we have, it's covered up by the latest chits that I've drawn here, the Roman army display. And you can see here this organizes all of the different legions and into consular armies. And then you can see these markers here that determine which leader is currently using, or is currently leading this particular consular army. So you can see here we've got a field consul up here, we've got the Rome consul, down here we've got the Magister Equitum, and he's kind of special. We'll talk about him in a minute. And then over here you can see there's a single legion here in the consular forearmy commanded by a praetor. And then up here we've got the Urban Legion commanded by the Praetor Urbanus. And the Urban Legion is the Roman militia, not militia, but the Roman legion that guards Rome and is allowed to stay in Rome. Here you can see these other consular armies all have 2 legions to them. That's because consular armies have to have 2 legions in order to be a consular army. However, in the instance of raising legions, you may not be able to raise more than 1 legion in a turn. It's all determined by die roll. When your overall commander, who is typically the Rome consul up there, but there are instances where he's not, which I also explain shortly. If you have a single legion that gets raised, that legion immediately needs a commander. And so in the middle of the turn, you will quote-unquote elect, or rather draw from the cup in this case, which is what elect means in the game. That's how you choose who leads what. You have to elect a praetor to command a single legion. And then these leaders, as they're placed, will be assigned different provinces on the map in which to command their armies. So I did mention here that there's this guy, this Magister Equitum here, and he is basically the second in command after the dictator, which I currently have on the board. Rome doesn't usually have, or doesn't always have dictators, but they do in instances of emergencies. And you can see here currently in Rome, I've got the dictator here. And you can see he has a little chit he keeps with him. In this case, I've elected to have the dictator remain in Rome, and this Magister Equitum command this consular army in the field. He is currently here in Samnium and commanding the 5th consular army. And then, since the Magister Equitum is the overall, or ranks everyone in the field currently, the only person he doesn't outrank is the dictator, who, as I mentioned, is staying back in Rome. This Magister Equitum is commanding men in the field here and leading the invasion of Samnium. This particular scenario that I'm playing is, as you can see here, the Samnite Wars. So Samnium figures prominently. You can see here the Samnites, led by Gaius Pontius and one of his scrub generals, are currently in revolt and fighting against the Romans. The Roman objectives in this particular scenario are to control the province of Samnium. However, not just that, they also have to not necessarily control, but at least move all of these provinces here, tracked on the alliance level track, over into independent, at least either totally neutral or pro-Roman stance. So as you can see, they're working on Samnium down there at the bottom, which is a non-Roman ally. They've had some military victories that have started edging that over towards neutrality. And then up here, there's some that are inching towards alliance with the Samnites, and the Romans need to work on moving all of those back over to independent. Once they do that and entirely control the province of Samnium, that will give them the victory. This is a 10-turn scenario. I'm on about the 4th turn right now. I've been playing a little bit already, and as you can see, the Romans have had some success moving into Samnium. They start with not very many legions, and so I spent the first couple of turns working on raising more legions to with which to subjugate the Samnites. But the Samnite Wars themselves actually lasted about 50 years. The intent with this scenario, and the designer notes indicated that this would be kind of long and boring to do all 50 years of the Samnite Wars. And so you get 10 years as sort of a Samnite Wars sampler, if you will. The notes indicate that you can play longer than the 10 turns. I doubt I will here. It's very possible I can end up winning before that. The Samnites are looking fairly weak at the moment, especially with two consular armies headed towards their armies, which one of which, those generals there in the mountains, recently suffered a major defeat last turn, so his army's in not really any fighting shape. So we'll see how it goes. I may post another video just with a sort of recap and explain some of my other thoughts on the game. So far, it's been slow going with the Roman political rules, learning about where you put leaders when. That definitely takes some getting used to, lots of paging through the rules and looking things up. You can see here, actually try and make it easier on myself. First of all, this helps my rulebooks that come with the game last longer. Also, in this case, I've printed out these rules and stuck them in a binder. In this case, these are revised rules. These are from 2008, living rules from the website, and here the series rules from just updated this year. So I think trying to play this game with the original rule books as printed would be pretty near impossible, just because they've been substantially rewritten over the years through player feedback and so forth. But lots of looking up, lots of flipping through this my handy binder here. But we'll see how the scenario turns out. Like I said, I've definitely gained some more confidence in playing the rules, and so I look forward to trying some of the more complex scenarios. This one didn't include any of the naval rules, which adds another level of complexity to it, so I suspect the next scenario I take on will incorporate the full naval rules, and we'll see how well I do with those. Hopefully it will be much easier now that I'll have the meat of the Roman political rules down much better from this scenario. So, more later. Thanks.